Appeals, the town of Orleans. And we have 3 items on the agenda, and they are numbered sequentially 2173, 2174, 2175. Previous to this, calling this meeting to order, we have been informed that 2 members have requested to not to consider for one reason or another, number 2173. Presently attending the meeting are myself, the chair of the zoning board, and members Gerald Mulligan, Matthew Cole, and Bruce Taub. Also present, by the way, is the building commissioner of the town of Orleans, Thomas Evers. Excused for the time being is the board secretary, Ms. Favor. So under the circumstances, we have a quorum of 4 members who could consider case number 2174, which I will call. This is the application of Michael and Jill Negingier, and I'll be correct. My pronunciation of names is in this case it's apologetic, because I'm not really sure how to pronounce that surname. It's for a special permit in accordance with Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 48, Section 6, and also zoning bylaws 164-21A05, 164-43, and 164-44, which is the criteria for the special permits. Now, the applicants here at 3 and 5 Archer Lane propose to construct a dwelling and studio workshop, and the resulting building coverage will exceed 4,000 square feet. Is any member of the board aware of any circumstances or have had any communication with the applicant or any of the applicant's agents which ought to be disclosed to the board, or which would otherwise constitute a conflict of interest? Since there's no positive response, I declare that the 4 members of the board present are indifferent and impartial. Who is proceeding for this in this application?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. David Little, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so I am representing Michael and Jill Nanager. The J is silent. It's Dutch, I understand. The materials that we provided you include a site plan, a copy of the recorded A&R plan, the Conservation Commission order of conditions, and floor plans and elevations. So by way of history, we appeared before the Conservation Commission last fall, and the approved plan after a couple of meetings with them resulted in the new building being located 59 feet from the top of the coastal bank, where the existing dwelling is currently located 20 feet from the top of the coastal bank. And it also required the addition of a 15-foot planted buffer strip along the bank. Subsequent to that, we have been to the planning board and we submitted an A&R plan which combined the 2 lots. The total area of the site is 99,595 square feet, approximately 2.3 acres. And the buildable upland area of the site is 68,801 square feet, approximately 1.6 acres. What combining the lots did, it provided the applicants with more flexibility with developing the property, and the resulting building coverage is only 8.6 of the buildable upland with the 2 lots combined. So as I noted in my letter to you, both structures will comply with all horizontal and vertical requirements of the Orleans zoning bylaw, and the proposed aggregate building coverage with the two buildings of 5,885 square feet is 8.6% of the buildable upland. And that's why we're here before you this evening. It triggers the requirement of a special permit under section 164-21A note 5 of the Orleans zoning bylaw. So if anybody had the opportunity to visit the site, we did stake out the proposed dwelling and studio. The dwelling, while being moved back from the top of the coastal bank, is still set back quite a bit from Archer Lane. There is one end of the garage that gets within 30 feet of the road layout, but that is shielded by a significant amount of vegetation. The remaining portion of the dwelling is set back quite far from the lane, and the proposed studio will have a fair amount of vegetation that screens it from Archer Lane as well. The building elevations show that the center portion of the dwelling is 2-story, while the L's on both sides are single-story, and then above the garage there is a 2-story space as well. During the process with the Conservation Commission, they look at not only the wetland impacts, but they look at the impacts from the resource area or people that might be going down the ORV trail. And moving the house back the way we did and maintaining the height requirements of the bylaw will make the proposed dwelling less imposing than the existing dwelling as seen from the ORV trail on the beach. So I'm going to address the special permit criteria, if I may, and then I'll open myself up for questions, Mr. Chairman. We believe the site is adequate in size for the proposed use. The project will result in the building coverage of 5,885 square feet, which is only 8.6 of the buildable upland of the property, 8.6%. The site is suitable for the proposed use. The continued residential use of the site in this zone is appropriate. The dwelling and the studio will comply with all horizontal and vertical dimensional requirements of the bylaw. There will be no new impact on traffic flow or safety within the neighborhood. The project will have no negative impact on visual character of the neighborhood. The design of the structure is in keeping with the varied but traditional architectural styles of the Pochit area. Today, when I visited the site again before the meeting, I took the opportunity to drive around Gosnold Road and Pochit Road and other roads. And while this house is large, there are other large houses in the neighborhood, and I do believe it is in keeping with the neighborhood visual character. We plan to install a new Title V sewage disposal system. The property is served by town water, and the proposed layout and topography of the site ensures that there would be no drainage issues resulting from the project. The adequacy of utilities and public services will not be changed or impacted by the project. The new structures will pose no change in noise or litter impacts to the neighborhood other than temporary noise impacts during construction. And we plan to have a dumpster to remain on site to contain all construction debris. And as to the impact of groundwater quality, recharge volume, and water quality of coastal and freshwater bodies, the Conservation Commission issued an order of conditions for the proposed activities on the site. The location of the new dwelling respects the coastal bank setbacks and results in the restoration of the land within the 50-foot buffer to the top of the coastal bank. And additionally, the existing cesspool will be removed and replaced with the new Title V sewage disposal system. So that being said, we believe the construction of the dwelling and studio will not be substantially more detrimental to the established future or character of the neighborhood. and will be in keeping with the general purpose and intent of the zoning bylaw as demonstrated in the various documents that I provided and my speaking to you this evening. I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Little. I think that with the construction of the garage wing, so to speak, you're losing a few trees, a couple of cherry trees and a cedar tree. Is that right?
Yeah, we are. And the neighbor to the north of the garage wing, Mr. Chairman, the Flynn's, the applicants have reached out to their immediate abutters, and they, both the abutters and the applicants, are interested in maintaining screening so that there aren't any visual issues. So that we hope that that will not be an issue with anyone.
Well, is anyone present at this hearing wishing to speak in opposition to this application? Well, Mr. Little, the reason I brought that the subject of the removal of the trees is that to the north of the new wing, where you see that there's vegetation, the plan doesn't show anything, any plant less than a tree. So we wouldn't know that unless we took a site visit, and I didn't.
No, you're absolutely right, Mr. Chairman, and we do show that the new electric line and water line will come in that area. But I also represented the Flynn's several years ago when they built their house, and I do know that the applicants and the Flynn's have been in contact with each other with respect to making sure that both properties are screened from each other.
I think by separate correspondence, you may have requested from the board secretary whether there had been any correspondence received, electronic correspondence received concerning this application. And to my knowledge, there has been none. There appears to be no one present at this hearing to speak in opposition to it. Now, I've spoken enough. Are there any members of the board wishing to inquire of Mr. Little for the applicants? No, no positive response. This is a raise and rebuild.
Yes, sir.
Then if there's no questions, then I'll close the hearing for the taking of evidence and ask the sense of the board.
Just a note of curiosity, how much of this coverage area is the 4-car garage?
If you'll bear with me, Mr. Mulligan, I'll let you know. Approximately 1,000 square feet.
So they're looking for an exemption for a 4-car garage, basically.
Well, I don't consider it an exemption. As I've mentioned before to the zoning board in the past, I believe that when the town adopted the 4,000 square foot trigger, it was because prior to that, they adopted a 40,000 square foot zoning requirement. And 10% of that is 4,000 square feet. So my contention is that if you combine 2 lots together and you can create a buildable upland of close to 100,000 square feet, you satisfied the zoning board requirements for that trigger in exceeding the 4,000 square foot coverage. As I mentioned, the percentage is, after combining the lots, is 8.6%.
Well, I know, I've heard you articulate that very artfully and convincingly in the past. And I credit you with establishing or trying to establish a legislative history to the zoning code here in town. And I give you credit for trying to do that, or doing that anyway. That's all. The only question I have, Mr. Chairman, I just think that I said enough.
Well, in that case, colleagues, I'll move that the application for special permit be granted. Is there a second?
Second,
By Mr. Mulligan. Is there any discussion on the motion? All those in favor will need to poll since it's
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I apologize.
very well.
I'm going to vote in the affirmative, but I just am sometimes appalled at the size of the structures that people think are necessary for satisfactory living in the town of Orleans. Thank you for the opportunity to share that.
Thank you, Mr. Taub. Mr. Marner, yes. Mr. Mulligan,
yes.
Mr. Cole,
Yes.
and Mr. Taub,
Yes,
and the motion carries unanimously. Then I will write the opinion.
Thank you very much.
David, my remark was not negative. I was just, you're very creative, and I think it has a lot of logic to your position. That was
Well,
Thank-
it isn't just an airplane hangar out there. There's a second floor with a media room and a fifth bedroom that's with an ensuite bathroom. So, it's hardly a garage. It all depends on the way that you look at the drawing. But
No, I know. I used to think that if I were the client, saying, well, rather than have to go through another legislative hearing or regulatory hearing, rather, that for a 4-car garage, I might be willing to sacrifice that to skip this step. But I think David makes a very convincing argument about where the 4,000 figure came from.
very well.
Thank you very much, everyone.
I am calling now case number 2175. That's the application for a special permit by Warren Brewer Jr. Who's going to present this? I'm wondering if Mr. Zender is coming.
Hi,
in.
Mr. Chairman. It's Richard Brewer.
Oh,
How are you?
very well. And you?
Good to see everybody, and thanks for inviting us. I'm waiting for my representative, Ben Lander.
Zender, I think.
Yeah,
I thought you were
Zander, yeah.
very well.
Yeah.
He probably,
So
probably
he's-
thought he was going, he probably thought he was going third, Mr. Chairman. You know, Mr. Zender.
He probably did.
Yeah,
We'll wait until Mr. Zender comes. I know you're anxious because Mr. Zender has expressed that anxiety to me in
Oh,
a dignified way.
that's very helpful. That's nice to know. I mean, I could try to follow up Mr. Little's example and present as best I can, but probably, looking at the documents that you have in front of you there.
You needn't do that, Mr. Brewer. We can wait for Mr. Zender. Mr. Flores, now I have, the problem I have here.
I do.
I understand. And I'm sure that I'm not the only member of the board who's examined the application, but we only have 3 members able to act. And if you had 4, you need 4, all 4. 3 is the same as 0. That's
Did you say the fourth member was joining at 7?
No, the board secretary, Mr. Warren is
6-minute.
Mr. Warren is excused. He's out of the country. Ms. Van Giesen has expressed her an interest in being as she's recusing herself. Mr. Mulligan has done that.
My sister isn't a butter,
Oh,
and Miss Van Giesen's parents are butters.
so it's possible to have a quorum of 4, but just not this evening is what you're saying.
Oh, yes.
And when is your next hearing?
It would be in 2 weeks, well, the first Wednesday in
June.
June.
I am out of the country.
How about the third Wednesday in June?
Just feel bad for these clients because they were kicked out of the last. This was continued from the 4th as well.
And that is on me. I was, rather than have you wait through a 3-hour hearing on where a lot of townspeople were interested and not being reached, I preferred not to do that to you. And now I've got a different.
I understand. Do we know that the 4th member will be back on the 15th?
You know who's
Is it the 15th?
is Miss Eckholt is quite religious about her attendance.
We have a number for her, Mr. Chairman. I'll call. See if she's-
So she had indicated that she was going to be in Croatia for this meeting and miss it. I have a question. Could we proceed with the presentation, understanding that there's only 3 voting members, have her catch up on the tapes and simply vote at the next meeting?
Yes, yes, there's no reason why that couldn't be done as long as the vote is, we need the requisite number of votes. You're right, Mr. Cole. Or what your suggestion is, we can do that.
But Miss Tirano Flores has to understand that she needs a unanimous vote if she proceeds this evening.
No, we're not gonna take a vote.
Oh, I see. I
We're
apologize.
gonna
I
take the evidence.
apologize. No
We'll
problem.
Continue it at the request of the board and at the,
If Mr.
So then
Cole
the
wants to
next-
make that as a motion, I would second it.
very well.
Well, I want to hear from the applicant because it's
Yeah.
tricky in all cases. So
Thank you.
It's up to the applicant to decide what's the most favorable way to proceed.
So I think what you're saying is that the missing members, because they would only be missing 1 hearing, could read in under the rule and participate in the next hearing, at which point they would vote. My only concern is, I guess, whether that would, when that next meeting would be and whether I'd have a comfort level to not be there. Could the board chair please remind me what that meeting in June, it's June 1st or June 15th?
It would be yeah, those are the 2 meetings in June, I think. I don't have a calendar in front of me.
Yeah, 1st and 15th are the 2 meetings in June.
And you can't, you won't be available on the 1st. Would you be available on the 15th?
I am available on
Very
the
well.
15th.
Then that's when the-
Unfortunately, on the first, that's the actual travel day. That's the first day, and I'll be in a plane at 7 o'clock. So no way to attend on the 1st, I'm afraid.
Sarah, I won't be
So-
available on the 15th.
And David, will you be available? You won't be available on the 15th, Chris?
No, I leave for Denali in like 3 days. So I'll be
Okay,
on Glacier still.
I understand. So, and David, are you available on the 1st and 15th?
Yes, Sarah, I am.
Our project engineer is David. Okay. Okay. A lot of the questions out of the way tonight. Let's start. And at the conclusion, we can decide whether to continue to the 1st or the 15th. Does that sound okay?
Well, let me ask an obtuse question. Is there anyone present at this hearing who wishes to object to the application of Pleasant Bay Ranch LLC and to the timing of the continuance? There is no positive response. Therefore, we will proceed to take the evidence.
Okay, thank you
And
very much. Sarah Toronto Flores on behalf. Sorry, go ahead.
I really needed to ask whether any member of the board who has not recused themselves has had any communication with the applicant or any of the applicant's agents, which ought to be disclosed to the public or to the colleagues on the zoning board, which would constitute a conflict of interest. No positive response. Therefore, I declare the 3 members present as impartial and indifferent. And this is the application of Pleasant Bay Ranch LLC for special permit in accordance with Chapter 40A of General Laws, and also Chapter 40A, Section 9 of the General Laws, also Section 164-21A, Note 5. That's because the proposed single-family residential dwelling with the boathouse and accessory residential uses will have in excess of 4,000 square feet. The proposition is that the existing structures will be raised and replaced by the structures delineated in the plans filed by the applicant. And that is the only relief needed by the applicant. Is that correct?
That is, yes.
Then can you present it?
I can. If my internet connection is unstable as I keep getting a sign, I will turn off my video so you can still hear me, but I'll keep it on for now.
Yeah, the connection isn't good, Sarah.
Sarah Toronto Flores on behalf of the applicant, and with me. Okay. Hopefully this will be better. Oh dear. You can't hear me at all?
Yes, we can. We can hear you. We can hear you now. Earlier, the connection wasn't very good.
Okay. So this evening with me is David Little, who is the project engineer, and also Chris Salomon, who is the project architect. The property at 71 Tohi Lane is 53,496 total square feet in area. 44,204 square feet of that is buildable upland. The property is currently improved with a 3-bedroom single-family dwelling and a boathouse and shed. The existing 2-story structure is 29.8 feet in height, but only 39.4 feet from the top of the bank on the west side of this property. The coastal bank wraps around from the south to the west. And so the existing single-family dwelling does not meet your coastal bank setback. 44.7 feet is required, and it is only sitting 39.4 feet away. This proposed project includes the raising of that existing structure and rebuilding it to comply with all of the dimensional setbacks and height requirements under your zoning bylaw in the residential zoning district. It will cure and correct the the existing coastal bank setback nonconformity. The proposed house is a 5-bedroom home. Its height is actually lower than the existing structure at only 28.4 feet in height. It will sit 55 feet back from the top of coastal bank on the side, on the west side of the house, of the property, and 88 feet from the top of bank along the south. So what we've done is pushed the development further landward and away from the sensitive coastal areas on this property. Due to its height, 42.6 feet is required from that western coastal bank. So we're definitely far away and bring that setback into conformity with this proposed project. As with the application before you, you still need a special permit because the proposed total exceeds the 4,000 square feet at 58,090 square feet. That includes the boathouse on this particular property. It will still remain under the lot coverage within the residential zone of 15%. It will be 13.3%. Again, under 164, section 164-21A, note 5 of your bylaw, we do need a special permit. And like Mr. Little before me and the project before me, I'd like to go through the special permit standards that are set forth in your bylaw in section 164-44. With regard to the first criteria, the site is adequate in terms of its size for the proposed use. Again, where we're at 13.3% of lot area, even though it is in excess of 4,000 square feet, we are still under the 15% limitation on this lot. Importantly, I think with regard to this lot, you'll see on the site plan that we pushed it as far back from the two coastal banks on the property as possible, while still meeting the front setback here. Total coverage, and this includes not just roof coverage, but for environmental purposes, I'm talking about any kind of hardscape coverage, has been moved away and pushed back well outside the buffer zone, 50-foot buffer zone to the top of the coastal bank. And this results in a reduction of that coverage from the existing conditions in that existing house of 1,212 square feet within the 50-foot buffer zone. We're pushing everything back and revegetating it with native species, developing a 50-foot buffer where there wasn't any before. This is also the house within the ACEC. And so we're removing 826 square feet, excuse me, of existing coverage from the ACEC on this site. So we feel the proposed design greatly improves site coverage conditions on this property and is still within your coverage limitations within the residential district. Criteria 2 is whether the site is suitable for its proposed use. Again, this is a residentially zoned lot where it's a replacement of a single family dwelling with a single family dwelling, and we feel that therefore it is suitable. The proposal similarly will not impact nor alter existing traffic flow nor safety within the neighborhood. Again, it's an existing single family dwelling. We are going from 3 to 5 bedrooms, but it is intended as this family's home. It's not going to increase traffic or pose any safety concerns within the neighborhood. We feel that the proposal will not impact the neighborhood's visual character nor its views and vistas. You can see from the architectural elevations that were submitted with the application that the design incorporates the form elements that are traditional to Cape Cod. It's a very standard traditional Cape Cod home. It will be in keeping with the designs and the aesthetic of the surrounding neighborhood. We have, again, the benefit of purposely designing this to scooch back into the inland portion of the lot is that it will not impact the views from the properties on either side. It does not, in fact, impact any of the existing views within the residential neighborhood from any of the surrounding properties. And we feel that by moving it again back landward, it provides a better context within the coastal setting and will be less visible from the water side. The method of sewage disposal and the source of water and drainage is adequate for this proposed use. We are proposing a new Title V septic system. Unlike the existing system, which is on the seaward side of the dwelling, we're going to remove all of those components and locate them outside the 100-foot buffer zone. So in between the home and the road, and all of the existing components will be removed. The property will continue to be serviced by the public water supply. All stormwater runoff is going to be captured and directed to dry wells that are proposed as part of this project. The utilities and other public services remain adequate on the site. We're going to service the proposed dwelling with existing utilities. I'm not sure who's on the cell phone, but I don't know if you can hear me. They may want to mute themselves.
Mr. Zender. It's Mr. Zender.
Okay, Ben, put yourself on mute there.
Host mute, Mr. Zender.
I've already muted it.
Okay.
The proposed use will not, this is again a residential use, so it's not expected to cause any undue noise, litter, or any increase over existing conditions. Again, it's a replacement of a single family dwelling. And finally, the final, and I think for this coastal property, the most perhaps important criteria, the proposed project is going to serve to improve groundwater quality, as well as the abutting coastal surface water bodies, where we're putting in a fully compliant Title V system. And on the landward side of the house, outside now the buffer zone to the top of the coastal bank, the groundwater quality is going to be significantly improved here. The proposal before you comes with a very, very extensive land management plan. We are creating an entirely new 50-foot buffer where currently there's lawn. This involves 25 new native trees will be planted, 592 native shrubs will be planted. We're eliminating the lawn in that area and seeking to propose an undisturbed native vegetative buffer. There are invasives in this area that are going to be removed and replaced with these native species. There's a lot of existing vines growing up over both native and invasive trees that are remaining, and they're going to be very, very, very carefully removed, and the trees are going to be monitored to make sure that they survive after the vines are removed. The Conservation Commission was very careful to ensure that we were installing this land management plan with a long-term 3-year monitoring program, so that all of the improvements that will come with this native vegetation will last in the long term. The benefits here obviously are that the coastal resources and the adjacent surface water bodies will be protected. Not only are we improving the wildlife habitat values on the site, but through the elimination of the lawn and the planting of these tree and shrub layers with their root structures and systems will be stabilizing the soils and sediments at the top of this eroding bank, therefore slowing down the erosion and improving the storm damage prevention and flood control functions of the coastal bank, both on the south and the west side of the property. So we believe we meet all of the criteria as I've just reviewed them, and thank you for allowing me the time to do so. We believe that overall there will be great benefits to this property, as a result of this project. The project will not be substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood. And we feel it will be in keeping with the general purpose and intent of the Orleans zoning bylaw. So we respectfully request that you grant our special permit, and we're happy to take your questions at this time. Thank you.
Yes. Now, the way I see it, then, the existing boathouse is not being raised. It remains in place, and its dimensions of 300 coverage of 350 square feet remains the same.
That's right. That's the roof coverage. It's got a substantial deck around it. That's not included in that figure, but that is not, none of that is going to be changed as a result of this program.
Now, otherwise, the architectural plans show a magnificent attention to detail. I think for completeness, would you send through the board secretary the order of conditions? If somehow it didn't get into this application. I know that the Conservation Commission approved the project, but I don't have that for our file.
It was included with the filing. So I
Okay.
will, and I emailed it. So I will email it again. I maybe it didn't get into your packet, but yes, you're right. It was issued by the board, and I have it in front of me.
On March 15th.
Yeah, yes, thank you.
And it says your zoning analysis refers to it as being included in the application materials. Must not just be my packet. And if you would be so kind as to send the electronic version through the board secretary of your zoning analysis, that would be appreciated. Now,
I will do so.
I have no questions concerning the application. Does any member of the board, Mr. Cobb or Mr. Kroll, have any questions?
Did I recall that there was a matter involving this property that reached an administrative or judicial body beyond the state water, whatever that title is of that commission, wetlands protection, et cetera?
Not for this project. The applicant had proposed a different siting for this closer to the bank on both sides and was slightly larger. And the Conservation Commission originally denied that project. And that was appealed to both the Department of Environmental Protection and the Orleans District Court. But while pending, the Department of Environmental Protection issued a superseding order of conditions. But while the district court proceeding was pending, we came up with this revised plan and went back to public hearing in front of the Conservation Commission. And that's the project in front of you here tonight that they approved on March 15th.
So the original matter was dismissed as moot because that design was scratched.
Exactly, right. We're not exactly proceeding with that.
And Mr. Chairman, could you explain again, if I understood you at the beginning of this specific case, you said our deliberations were limited to, and if I misheard you, I apologize, but having to do with the tear down of the existing structure, because the proposed structure is in all ways, we're being told, satisfactory to the zoning requirements of that residential zone and the setback, et cetera.
No, I don't think I meant to say that.
Well, then I'm glad I raised it. So
Very
what is
well.
so would
What
you?
I meant to say is that the proposed construction, according to the architectural plans and the site plan, is all of right, except for the total building coverage, which is now 5,890 square feet over, which is over the 4,000 square foot allowance.
So I would only make reference to my editorial comment at the close of the last case as to what I generally think of these exceptions. And the council might want to be present at the meeting when the vote is taken.
Very well. If there's no further questions, though, we'll close.
Questions, Mr. Chairman?
Is there another question?
I do, yeah.
I'm sorry, Mr. Cole, I didn't mean to cut.
So I recognize that we're here for coverage and that the hardscaping and the structure on the seaward side is not part of that calculation, but it is part of the plan, it is part of the project. Can you explain a little bit what that proposed hardscaping is comprised of and how that ties into the building? I think the thing that's triggering the comment is the looks like there's a large L-shaped set of stairs, and there's just not enough information on the plan to discern what that is and how it relates to the house, and doesn't seem to show on the elevations either. And I apologize if I'm misreading the plan.
Well, if I may, Mr. Chairman, David Little. So those,
Yes, please.
there are patios connected to the dwelling. They are pervious patios. Between the dwelling and the patios, there is also native planting beds. So there are stairs and other elements that go around the building. But if I could, for Matt's benefit, where we had the difficulty with the Conservation Commission wasn't on the Pleasant Bay side of the structure. It was on the side of the structure to the west that faced the coastal bank by definition, where there really isn't any water. So it was interesting where we ran into some difficulties, but we solved them through the process. Does that help you at all?
It does somewhat. Again, I assume the two proposed porches are part of the coverage calculation. And again, that's the issue. What I don't think is represented here that I think is going to be visually impactful is that if there's that great a number of stairs up to the patio, there must be a pretty substantial retaining wall at the edge of the patio that again isn't showing the elevations. So I'm just trying to get an understanding for if I were in the water looking back, how substantial a built structure will that area be without, not covered by roof?
If you're in the water looking back, you're essentially seeing a two-story structure. If you were standing on the neighbor's property to the west, where the driveway comes down to the house, there is the opportunity to park cars seasonally under the house. So from the west side of the house up to the southerly facing side of the house, there are stairs that accomplish that.
Matt, I would just add to that the fact that we're putting 592 shrubs now where there's grass. I would hazard that you could see more of the existing house than you're going to see of this house, because it's not just from the top down, from the bottom up. They're now going to be 592 shrubs between this house and the water, and 25 new native trees that are going to provide ample screening, which is always a concern of this Conservation Commission, and it was extensively addressed in the design process.
Yeah, now that you explain that, David, I take back my comment about the drawings. The west elevation does show that. Now I've got a better picture of how that all comes together. So that sufficiently answers my question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Then,
I hesitate to continue because I think that the nuances, if there are any, would be missed by any subsequent voters without the benefit of the direct testimony and evidence. So though I have additional questions, I am reserving them, sir. Thank you.
very well. I'll close the hearing tonight, only for tonight, for the taking of evidence and at the request of the board, continue the hearing until June 15th, at which time at least one more member of the zoning board who is qualified to vote will have reviewed the transcript and will resume the hearing at that time, possibly proceeding to a vote. Is that
Yep, that sounds right. Thank you.
very well?
I just would, if we need architectural questions, maybe Chris, there needs to be someone else from your office present. But if Mr. Taub has any questions of the project architect, understanding you might have other questions you want to reserve for the other night. He's here this evening, but he won't be here on the 15th.
I thank you for the courtesy. The project is beautiful. It's not about intent. It's always about impact. We trust the intent of people to satisfy the well thought out requirements that pertain to our precious and unique water supply and coastal bank. And again, this is not about intent. Thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Architect. You might, if you want to say something, that would be an opportunity. I am sure the chair would give you the opportunity to do so.
Thanks for having me, but I think Sarah kind of summarized that quite well. We do have a architectural rendering from out in the bay that I can get over to Sarah as well, that shows a little sliver of the top of the house is really all that you really see from out in the bay. So we can provide that as well.
In that same category, if it's seen from the Overland Sand Trail, that would also be a useful view.
I don't believe this, the only place you could see this, Mr. Taub, would be from the bay or from the Eastward Ho Golf Course.
Okay, good enough for me.
So we'll get you that rendering. We'll have it available to share my screen at the next hearing. I could also submit it in advance.
Very well. Well, that will be helpful.
I'll second the motion to continue to June 15th.
And this is a procedure motion. We can do it by acclamation. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And no opposition. That motion to continue is passed unanimously. Mr. Brewer, I saw Mr. Zender is with us. Mr. Zender, can you join us? I am now calling case number 2175 for hearing. Now, this is the application of in the name of Warren Brewer Jr. for a special permit to alter a pre-existing non-conforming dwelling under section 164.21C. The way I read it is that the resulting structure will be, resulting coverage would exceed 4,000 square feet. And there are 2 or 3 other items, dimensional items where you need relief. This property is located at 38 Anchor Drive, Orleans. Now, as any member of the board, now constituting Mr. Cole, Mr. Mulligan, myself, and Mr. Taub, had any communication with the applicant or any of the applicant's agents, which ought to be disclosed to the public, the colleagues on the board, or which would otherwise constitute a conflict of interest. There's no positive response, so I declare the 4 members present of the board to be indifferent and impartial. Now, Mr. Zender, we have 4 members.
Yes, Mr. Marnick, and I'm certainly willing to go forward with 4 members at this point.
Well, then, can you proceed?
I can, and thank you. Mr. Marnick, again, for the board, all of you, and thank you for your patience in waiting for me to get here. I know that my client, Richard, has been online watching your proceedings. This application is for the increase of the intensity of the coastal bank setback. And as you're all aware that, your bylaw requires that a structure be set back from the coastal bank 1.5 times its height. This structure, and I hope you've all been out there to see it, is a somewhat older structure. It's, according to the plan, 16.5 feet. The structure itself from the edge of the coastal bank, although the deck is about a 1/2 foot, I believe, from the edge of the coastal bank. The Brewers have owned this property since the late 1960s, and it's sorely in need of repair and updating. And that is triggering compliance with the Massachusetts Building Code flood zone requirements, which requires that the structure be lifted up to meet those flood zone requirements. So the proposal here will increase the structure from a ridge height standpoint from 21.3 feet to 22.6 feet. So it's about a 1.3 foot increase in height. But that's because what they're going to have to do is to lift the structure up and then add to the foundation. They have to add a strip to the foundation to put the house back down on, to lift it up to meet the flood zone requirements. And while they're doing that, what they're proposing is to create a new dormer on the front of the building. There's already an existing dormer on the water side, but they've got a very attractive dormer that runs along the front of the building with a gable dormer running through that dormer. So what they're doing is keeping the house, lifting it up approximately 1.3 feet. And then while they're doing that, they're putting this dormer on the front of the house. It's attractive, I believe. It doesn't change I don't believe it changes the lot coverage or the building coverage to the property. It doesn't change the relationship of the property to the sideline or the front line or the rear line. It doesn't change the use of the property. And just for the board's edification, it's already been approved by Conservation on December 8th. They issued an order of conditions, which is in your package. And on May 5th, I went in front of the Old Kings Highway Regional Historic District, and they issued a certificate of appropriateness for the project as well. So because the structure is getting taller to meet the flood zone requirements, it is increasing its nonconformity vis-a-vis the top of the coastal bank, which is, again, the height of the structure related to the top of the coastal bank. And that's why we're in front of this board. So I'm not going to go through the criteria for the granting of a special permit. They're in our written materials. But if the board has any questions about the project or even our compliance with the criteria, I'll do my best to answer them, and Richard's on to answer questions as well. And thank you all for your time and your patience.
And a full and complete description is contained in your project narrative, which you filed with the application. And to clarify, the 4,000 square foot coverage is not a question here, members of the board, because the property is in a floodplain, and therefore it does building coverage does not apply. So the way I understand it, it's all, the devil is all in the raising and putting in a foundation, excuse me, a basement. Is that right?
Mr. Marnick, there already is a basement. All they're doing is they're adding to the foundation. They're lifting the structure and adding. I think it's something like 17 inches or so. It's not a huge amount. Or maybe it's the equivalent of the house being raised. I know there's some structural work being done in the house itself, but they're actually not even removing the existing foundation. They're just adding to it and then dropping the house back down on top of it.
Any questions, members of the board? Mr. Mulligan?
You're muted, Gerald.
Okay, yeah, pardon me, sorry for the delay. Just my own edification, Mr. Zender. So does that bring it, I'm novice here on the floodplain regulations. Does that bring it 16 feet above that 17 inches, or that small amount brings it above 16 feet above the floodplain? Is that what it is?
Well, and I'm hoping that Mr. Evers will weigh in on this, but the building, the habitable floor areas are required to be raised up a certain amount of distance above the flood stage height for that flood zone. So
Right.
this will bring that first floor elevation above that required flood height.
And is that number 16 feet?
I don't know what that number is, Mr. Mulligan.
Okay, that's fine. It was only for my edification, wasn't for my decision on the board.
It might be the first floor elevation existing is 16.8. And I'm looking for a number on what that elevation is. I don't know exactly what that is, Mr. Mulligan.
Does anyone know what TOF stands for on that plan? I don't know what that stands for.
Top
Mr.
of
Cole can
foundation.
weigh in on that.
Top of foundation.
Top
Yep.
of foundation?
Yep.
Oh, okay, thank you. All
Top of foundation.
right, thank you.
Mr. Marnick, may I inquire?
Yes, you may.
Ben, you have the unfortunate fate of being before us on something that is of great interest to me and will be of interest to the board increasingly over time as the climate impacts our beloved homeland. Need I say more? You know the project over by Skakit Beach where it's up on high pilings? You know the one I'm talking about?
I do not. I do
Okay,
not.
let it go, let it go. Sorry. From the outside, this will just look like the same old house, really, except it might have an oddly raised foundation. They'll have to extend the interior pipes and all of that stuff, you know, the sewer, the gas lines, all of that. It's a substantial challenge. And they're doing it at a kind of de minimis level, both because they're scared of us and the Conservation Commission and whoever. But what I'm concerned about is this really a solution, given that the basement will be substantially below the high water mark in short order?
Well, first of all, I don't think the Brewers do this because they're afraid of the Conservation Commission. They're doing it because, you know, when you invest money in your home in a building project, once you exceed half of the value of the structure itself, you're required to comply with the current version of the building code. So they're not allowed to essentially rehabilitate their home without meeting flood zone requirements. So they have
I
to do
was
it.
being slightly facetious.
No, I know you were. But once you said,
apologize.
once the word homeland came out of your mouth, I was thinking about something else anyways, but they can't not do it. So, but the way that the flood zone requirements are structured, they're not there to protect property. They're there to protect habitable floor areas and occupants. So you can have a basement, you can have a garage, you can have storage. There are certain things you can have. So, and they already have the foundation there. So other than that, you were talking about removing the house from the site, filling it in, putting in pilings. That's a much more expensive and complicated project than would be warranted here for the Brewers, I believe.
Understood.
Yeah.
Understood.
Just, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Brewer.
Yeah, I just want to recognize Mr. Tubbs' concerns and just point out that in fact, we are installing a septic. We don't have a sewer in that part of the neighborhood, so we're upgrading from a from a cesspool to a septic. So the sewer lines are not a concern, and we do not use gas in the house either, so the gas lines aren't a concern. It's all electric at this point. But and I will say that we are the one home, if you visited the site, that has maintained the wetlands in front of the house. There's other homes along that stretch that have filled in their wetlands, and we're very concerned about the resources that are unique to the Cape Cod as well as you are. So, thank you.
Thank you. At the risk of holding the members 2 minutes longer than the vote on this, it's not the intent usually. That's what I keep saying. It's the impact. And enough said. Thank you for your presentation. I have no further questions, Mr. Chairman.
Chairman, I'll move to grant the special permit.
Very well. Is there a second? Mr. Cole, second. Any discussion on the motion?
Could I just inquire again if Mr. Zender understands that one negative vote it has a terrible impact for him, and he's going forward nonetheless?
I would ask the chair to poll the, would the chair mind polling the board so I at least know? I wasn't sure, Mr. Tal, by your comments, whether that was a dissatisfaction with the state of the regulations or whether that was a no vote on the project.
Well, as part of the discussion, the motion's been made and seconded. As part of the discussion on the motion, I'm looking for the sense of the board. I think that the applicant is sensibly improving this property, Mayor, and not having received any correspondence in objection to the application, nor is there anyone present speaking in opposition to it. I'm well in favor of the narrative. Mr. Todd, do you have any?
No, sir, I agree with the chairman.
Very well. Then in that case, if there's no further discussion, I'll call for the vote. Mr. Marnick, yes. Mr. Cole,
Yes.
Mr. Mulligan,
Yes,
Mr. Todd.
Yes, sir.
The motion carries unanimously. Therefore, I will write the opinion, and Mr. Zender, if you'll be so kind at your earliest convenience to provide through the board secretary the project narrative file.
I'm happy to, Mr. Chairman, and thank you all. Thank you all for your time. And your patience.
And thank you, Mr. Brewer, and thank you, Mr. Zender, for your acceding to the need for the board to have an orderly hearing 2 weeks ago, which might have resulted otherwise in your being in attendance for 3.5 hours while we sorted out where a lot of people seem to be interested in the application.
I was only sorry I couldn't listen to that hearing, Mr. Chairman. So thank you all for your time.
Thank you. As if any further business will,
move to adjourn.
second.
Seconded.
Thank you. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, everyone.
Night,
Thank you.
everybody.
Good night.
Tom.